wins, but Bernie Sanders refuses to admit that he lost. Now, President Obama, he's meeting with Bernie to hash things out, and Trump trying to lure unhappy Bernie supporters his way. A whole lot going on in politics. We're all over it. Then the judge in the Stanford University rape case is now under fire. That after doling out what many are saying is far too lenient a sentence. Can that judge now get ousted himself? Our panel of attorneys is here to weigh in. Also, how the Trump University fraud case now also involves Texas and Florida. Campaign donations from Trump to attorneys general. Cases drop, the plot thickens. Good evening, everyone. I am Richard French, and welcome to Richard French Live. And we begin tonight with a big day in politics, the morning after, if you will. Hillary Clinton, the first woman to become nominee of a major political party in the United States, but Bernie Sanders not throwing in the towel yet. And of course, Donald Trump, he will not pipe down. Hillary Clinton declaring victory and taking it all in with open arms.
We've reached a milestone. First time in our nation's history that a woman will be a major party's nominee for president of the United States.
Clinton raking in victories in 4 out of 6 primary contests Tuesday, including delegate-rich California, securing enough delegates to clinch the Democratic nomination, telling ABC's David Muir how significant she thinks a female president would be.
It is, of course, symbolic, but symbols mean something.
Bernie Sanders, meanwhile, still in the race, pledging to fight to win next week's primary in the nation's capital.
And then we take our fight for social, economic, racial, and environmental justice to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.
Donald Trump already trying to poach Sanders' support.
We welcome you with open arms.
Trump reading from a teleprompter, something he's criticized other politicians for.
It was almost as if he was like a circus lion who'd been tranquilized because he had bit too many people.
The presumptive GOP nominee still dealing with backlash from his own party. That after comments he made about the Mexican ancestry of the judge presiding over his Trump University case.
Textbook definition of a racist comment.
Too racist and bigoted for the party of Lincoln for me.
Ow. Let's get into our political panel, and it's the guys tonight. Dominic Carter, political journalist and author. Dom was in Brooklyn last night at the Clinton rally, and Andrew Whitman, our senior political correspondent, who was stuck with me. All right. Well, let's start on the Democratic side first. And Dom, usually I hate the questions of the mood and all that. But I was here last night while you were there live. I got the distinct impression it didn't, for the first time it seemed that she connected a little bit. She did it with a speech in California, but that was more throwing 2 jabs and overhand right at Trump when she took him down a peg or 2 or 3 or 4. But last night, it seemed that she was human. You know what I mean? It wasn't robotic. The crowd, we actually saw a few tears, people finally connecting with her. It's only one night. There's a legion of people who can't stand her. I get all that. But you get the sense momentum isn't just a little. It's clearly behind her right now.
The momentum, your assessment is correct, of the audience last night. I was impressed with the fact that even as she was speaking, there were still hundreds of people trying to get past Secret Service to get in for the moment of history. There were little kids there, little girls, little boys, and you got the sense of history being made for the first time as a woman.
And let's be honest, throughout this entire campaign, as much as she tried to talk about breaking glass ceilings and the rest, nobody was hearing of it. In fact, and still, this isn't solved by last night by any means, the millennial vote here, millennial vote, youth, female voters, they weren't breaking for her. They were voting for Sanders over for her. Again, not solved last night, but you went a long way, I think, to do a couple things to try and, show that there was a history nature to it also, and also extend the fig leaf to Bernie Sanders.
And she achieved both of those goals. Clearly a message of Sanders of come on board, doing it in a way. And it was also remarkable for me, having been in the room 8 years ago in D.C. when she dropped out. And so perseverance and hanging in there 8 years later to see this same person go down and make history was pretty interesting.
I was actually surprised there wasn't more of a reach out to Bernie Sanders supporters. I thought she could have sort of made an even larger appeal to them. I thought she did so quickly and somewhat in passing. Maybe that's because we had the phone call from President Obama to Bernie Sanders. Maybe she realizes the end is nigh.
Tell everybody what happens in the next 24 hours, both that we know about and that what we're also hearing about. For example, campaign of Sanders cut in half, in effect here. Half the staff was basically laid off.
Well, yeah, they slashed a bunch of staffers over the course of last night and into today. They're still on the ballot in D.C., which votes on Tuesday, and last night Sanders said that he wants to continue to compete into D.C., but he got the phone call from President Obama last night. He's meeting President Obama in Washington tomorrow. He's also meeting with Harry Reid, who will still be his, more or less boss in the Senate for the remainder of this year. And so he's sort of meeting with the power players in Washington, and it doesn't really look like there's much of a room for his campaign to go forward. If I can quote Dominic, it's over. And really, when you look at the results from last night, she passed what she needed in terms of the majority of pledged delegates. That was one of the big Sanders support.
Right.
Sanders
and
lines.
3 million votes.
And she slammed the door in California, which was his other last argument to try to sway superdelegates.
Andrew, in terms of, fine, he's going to be meeting with the president, will Bernie Sanders. President expected to also endorse Hillary as soon as this week, right? And when do you think we hear Sanders say, she won, I'm not going to be a pain in the you-know-what in Philadelphia, people get behind Hillary?
I think it's going to take some ironing out to figure out exactly how to appease Sanders at the convention, what role he wants, and work out all of the details. I wouldn't be shocked if it happened later this week, but I suspect it'll be after Tuesday. Let him compete in the D.C. primary. He's on the ballot. He's already said he wants to compete there. And let him come to that conclusion. So it might be Tuesday night when the results from Washington come in.
Now, when you were in Brooklyn, little hour, I know, getting patted down by Secret Service, keep a close eye on you. In Briarcliff Manor at the Trump National Golf Club, the Donald was at it. This time on a prompter. You saw Matthew Dowd. I thought it was a great line. It was like they sedated a cat and they put him on a leash because he had bit too many people. It didn't feel right, Dom. He didn't get in trouble, but it didn't feel right. And I spoke to a prominent Republican today, and I said, if you had to choose between basically a sedated Trump on prompter or a more animated one off it, he goes, I'll take him on prompter. Whether he wins or not, at least he's not hurting people in the process. That's the vibe you get. And last night, it's funny, people said, oh, he was muted and behaved. If you listen to what he said that the Clintons and Hillary used the State Department basically, as their own hedge fund. I mean, he made completely wild, unsubstantiated allegations, criminal allegations, but it sounded calm because he was reading off of a prompter, albeit not well. It's in a strange place right now, the Trump campaign.
It is a strange place for the sake of the party, for the sake of the GOP. Let's hope that he stays on prompter. But that's the problem. The appeal of Donald Trump is, if you will, the wild and crazy cowboy that'll tell you whatever is on his mind. But that could lead to the entire party being called racist.
I think you're going to hear a lot of some of the stuff we heard from Peter Schweitzer's book, Clinton Cash, which went into some of the Clinton Foundation and investigated some of this a little bit. I have not read the book, but from what I understand, he's probably going to lift a bunch of the allegations that are made in that book and use them as part of this attack.
And he's promised a Monday address to get into it.
Perhaps as early as Monday. I also want to go back to the teleprompter because, yes, the performance was bad if you're watching at home, but I heard a lot of people saying, well, this was oriented as a message towards party insiders to let you know I'm still on the reservation. But if I'm a party insider, he's reading off the prompter. It's not, I didn't get any sense from this speech last night that that's what Donald Trump actually thinks in terms of policy positions or he wants to go to the country. I think he's just reading what's in front of him.
This is, to me, the $64,000 question. If you look at what was said, and we played a couple bites, you heard what Paul Ryan said, you heard what Senator Kirk had to say, Lindsey Graham has basically put him on the clock right now, asking people to unendorse. Well, I don't think, if I had to bet, that Cleveland, someone other than Trump will emerge as the nominee. There was a ton of political calculations going on. Forget about who shows up and who doesn't to Cleveland, which is in itself an open question. But I might want to run away from this guy as fast as I can, because this ain't going to get better. The sense that where we were less than 2 weeks ago, guys, that, my God, this thing's a toss-up, and Dom was making bets, which he'll get convenient amnesia on, that Trump was going to win. Yeah, exactly. I'm saying I get a lot of people, if he doesn't hurt me, I'll stand down because I don't want to be seen as helping Hillary. But any more of this stuff, I'm going to come out and say anybody but Trump.
I think he needs to. I think he needs to
How
show.
tenuous do you think that is?
I think he's got about 5 days to put turn the page on the Trump University stuff and stop picking on the judge and stop bringing the party down into the gutter. Otherwise, I think that will start to revive that potential talk. So I think he's got a limited window where he needs to show he can turn a corner and put that stuff behind him and just focus on Hillary Clinton. Otherwise, we're going to start hearing those rumors.
I think he'll be unrecognizable, Dom, if he's trying to be the tame version.
Yeah, he's got to stick to what brought him to the dance, and I'm standing by my prediction. This race still is not over. It's a long 5 months is a long time.
That wasn't his prediction.
I looked at a calendar and I know it's not
Don't
over.
write him off yet. Don't write him off yet.
You just saw Professional Hedge. Professionally done, by the way. Gentlemen, thank you. Andrew mentioned the Trump University case, and it will not go away. Certainly, we've talked about his comments about the judge, but it's in the news for a bunch of different reasons as well, and none of them good for the Donald. The cases in both Texas and Florida, well, the AGs, they dropped them over the university, and the circumstances look more than a little fishy.